Hi, welcome back to my channel. In this book review for The Bletchley Girls by Anna Stewart, first thing I did is I Googled Bletchley. I found out that Bletchley Park was the home of the World War II code breakers. Yes. Now, if we Google who were the code breakers, and it's well worth it to look this up, at least it was for me, because I love historical fiction, and as I read historical fiction, I keep finding more and more about World War II, who were in the resistance, who fought the Nazis, and how certain, just all these activities. So, if we look up the code breakers, we find out that nearly 10,000 people worked in this Bletchley Park organization. Okay? And in the case of this book, and if you look this up, you're going to see some marvelous pictures. Marvelous pictures, okay? But in this book, we have our three girls. We have Franny, we have Steffi, and we have Elsa, okay? Now, each of those girls played a pivotal role during World War II, and how can I put it? While their aspirations were high, just the fact that they wore a skirt, they were originally given non-essential assignments. But that didn't mean that's where the girls stayed. In fact, let's talk about each of them, okay? Now, we have Steffi. Now, remember, Bletchley Park is in England, but we're just going, like I said, to talk about each girl. Steffi lived in Italy for 8 years, and she became fluent in both German and Italian, and she was instrumental to the SOE. And the SOE was a secret British Second World War organization that was created in July 1940. Yeah, I was cheating. I was looking to be sure. Now, she became efficient in translating, but when she was reaching out to become a code breaker, you know what they said? You can just type notes. Okay, that's Steffi. That's not where she stayed, but that's how it started for her. Then we have Fran, who was working at Cambridge, and she was a great organizer. And so when she tried to become involved, they gave her some files, and there you go. Well, she did far more than that. And then we have Elsa, who was a radio operator, and she had pretty much, her footing was pretty solid in getting started because she was working on a small Scottish island. In fact, they met in Bletchley Park, but the girls, okay, first they stayed in different locations, and then they roomed together in a very small dwelling. But as they became involved in the war, they branched out. And so the story doesn't just take place in England, it takes place in Malta and also in Egypt, all fighting the same war. I just wanted to mention that because as I was talking about Elsa being a radio operator, her job was working in a radio station on a small Scottish island. So I just wanted to say that. So when you read this book, you're going to find out how adventurous each of these girls were and how sharp their skills were, and how even though a couple of them took on overseas appointments, they were very pivotal with regard to working as code breakers during World War II. Now, Steffi is the one that went to Egypt, and she was in Cairo, and there was, I didn't even know that Egypt was involved in the war, but that's where Steffi was assigned. Then Elsa was in Malta, okay, and she was eventually assigned to translate the broadcast of the Germans and the Italians, because remember, she was fluent in both of those languages. So she proved to be a major asset to the war, especially because at some point Malta was attacked by fighters and bombers. And then, of course, we have our girl Fran. Now, Fran may have stayed in the UK, but she didn't become any less than the other two girls, Steffi and Elsa. No, Fran was very instrumental in the role that she played as well. Also, this book talked a lot about Fran's life choices. So beyond talking about Fran's life choices, then we learn about relationships that the others develop. For example, Steffi and the person that she fell for. But beyond that, let's talk about the history. The history that came through the research that our author, Anna Stewart, did for this book. And it's always very good for us as readers to read past the epilogue of a book, because in most cases you have acknowledgments and you have an author's note. And that author's note is pivotal for us absorbing the reality of this Bletchley Park, this place in England where this code breaker agency was set up. Now, our characters may be fictional, and the events may be fictional, and even some of the locations may be fictional, but it's all based on the SOE, the resistance during World War II. Then there's something else that I wanted to mention about the Bletchley girls. I struggle to say that sometimes. A lot of the books we read take place in concentration camps in Germany, Berlin, in death camps and work camps and things of that nature. This is a historical fiction book based on World War II that does not take place in such a background. And it only covers a couple of years. It covers 1940 to 1942. And I'm telling you, this author, she made this book real. She made you feel for each of the three women and their experiences, especially the fact that it's based on historical fact. That is key right there. Now, I have never read any books about Bletchley Park before, nor have I'm fairly certain I haven't read any World War II historical fiction books that took place in Malta and in Egypt. So that added an extra dimension to an already excellently written story by Anna Stewart. I don't know why I threw in the J, but that adds in an extra dimension to an already fabulous story is our locations. And I love the fact that it's based on a true story, but a fictional situation that's based on a true story, but you feel the impact of it. And I think that Anna Stewart did a great job, and it gives us another window into a terrible time in history, but not a time that was completely hopeless. There was a thread of hope. There was strength, there was courage, there was bravery, and these women played a fabulous role, and we see how they started, used their skills, and where they went, and how their lives were forever affected. And then, of course, you have our epilogue, which kind of wraps up the story. It does it kind of quickly, but it does wrap up our story. And I just, I can't say much more than that, other than I recommend this if you like or love historical fiction as much as I do, especially if you love learning about different countries that were involved in the war one way or another. So I want to thank you for watching, and I'll be back with more. Bye-bye.